I was reading, as I always do, about the communion service. I was reading a Catholic priest. This guy lived in the 7th century. His name was Saint Maximus the Confessor. He said the things of the Old Testament are the shadow, those of the New Testament are an image, and truth is the state of the future things to come. I think that's very true. It's important to emphasize this future Christian hope. We're all about the gospel of the kingdom. That's the Christian hope. And we're all about one God, the Father, and the human Jesus, Messiah. So, with this in mind, I'd like to focus on this part. The kingdom, the hope. There's an interesting double meaning of communion and the hope in the Lord's Prayer itself. May your kingdom come. May your will be done on earth. Give us bread today for the coming day. Some people interpret this as the bread of the communion service that Jesus is speaking of here. And that's in Luke 11 and Matthew 6. And then Luke explicitly, obviously, he shows the service as inextricably bound up with the kingdom hope. When he says, Jesus, I have been earnestly looking forward to eating this Passover meal with you before my sufferings. And then he says that he will not eat it again until the coming kingdom. That's Luke 22:16. And it's interesting that post-resurrection in the book of Acts, Jesus did have a meal, remember? He did sit down and have a meal with them. But obviously that wasn't this meal. We will share with him in the kingdom. Paul adds a reference to actually the second coming, and the second coming equals the hope. And Paul mentions that in 1 Corinthians 11. There's a good book called The Eucharist in the New Testament, Kodel, K-O-D-E-L. And it says in part, Paul, the apostle, urges a deeper awareness of the meaning of the new covenant shared in the Lord's Supper, and thus an authentic proclamation of the Lord's death until he comes in glory. So I think this notion, this orthodox notion of going to heaven when we die and so on, takes a lot away from this hope. So as a result, the kingdom promise is center stage in the communion service, as it should be. It shouldn't just be about, other things. Of course, the death and resurrection, the suffering of Messiah is important, but in that horrible situation is the hope that we will one day all have a huge banquet with a lot of wine and a lot of food, and partake with the Lord. Imagine that, with the Lord Jesus, Paul the Apostle, Abraham. I mean, it's going to be incredible. There's a document that dates from the 1st century called The Teaching of the 12, or the Didache. And it says in part, even as this broken bread was scattered over the hills and was gathered together and became one, so let your church be gathered together from the ends of the earth into your kingdom. For yours is the glory and the power through Jesus Christ forever. So I'll leave you with this verse in Hebrews 10:25. Continue to keep a firm grip on the promises that keep us going. He always keeps his word, and let us not stay away from church meetings. Some people are doing this more and more. Take this opportunity to comfort, encourage, and warn each other, especially as we see the big day approaching. That's how we say it, paraphrase. Thank you.
Yeah.